It's the Oatly Academy ArtCast, episode 99. Interview with animation layout and visual development artist John Nevarez. Part 2. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the ArtCast by the Oatly Academy of Visual Storytelling. I'm Chris Oatly, director of the Oatly Academy and your host. I was a character designer and visual development artist at Disney, and now I teach full-time and produce this show where I help you make a living from your own imagination. Find more art and story podcasts from some of the most inspiring voices in animation, games, kids' books, VFX, and comics at oatlyacademy.com/shows. In part 1 of our interview, John Nevarez gave us a masterclass in gestural drawing technique. Now in part 2, John and I talk about what the first day at Pixar is really like, sneaky ways to get your work noticed, and the secret to staying sane in this crazy business. Before we start the interview, I want to let you know that I'll be teaching a visual storytelling course with my colleague and collaborator Micah Wienhofen, who runs the Storyteller Summit at the Oatly Academy, and our friend and mentor Brian McDonald, story consultant for Pixar and Disney and author of Invisible, Inc., this summer at the Film School Seattle. It's July 16th through August 5th, 2017. If you live in or near Seattle, Washington, or you would like to spend part of your summer in the beautiful American Pacific Northwest, please consider enrolling. You can go to oatlyacademy.com/go/summer17. That's SUMMER17 to learn more and register. Again, that's oatlyacademy.com/go/summer17. With your free membership to the Oatly Academy Brush Club, you'll get a new set of custom Photoshop brushes every month for a year, plus a how-to video for each new brush set. Here's a sneak peek at the brushes you'll receive. Stylized scatter brushes for cartoony worlds, tree brushes for naturalistic foliage, perspective brushes for environment design, bug brushes for designing creepy creatures, heavy metal brushes for industrial textures, and lots more. Go to oatlyacademy.com/go/Oatly brushes and sign up today. That's oatlyacademy.com/go/Oatly, OATLEY brushes. It's a whole year of new inspiration, and it's 100% free. Again, go to oatlyacademy.com/go/Oatly brushes and get your first brush set today. So how long did you do storyboards?
How long did I do storyboards? Up to the time when Kronk's New Groove was on, and that was my first design job. Going Kronk's New Groove. I don't remember the year that was, but if I had to take a guess, I want to say that was around 2003, 4?
Yeah, early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, it was around that time. Disney TV shared the same roof as Disney Toons at the time, right. So it wouldn't be unusual where on one floor of the building, one crew was on one end, and then the crew for Disney Toons was on another.
Right.
And it just so happened that there's a lot of sequels happening, and one of them which was Kronk's New Groove, which excited me because I loved Emperor's New Groove, and I loved the design, I loved the whole style.
Yeah.
And all this time I was like, oh, I would love to have done that. I would love to do layouts and design, stuff like that.
Right.
So I would do it on my own, really bad, but I just kept doing it. And then I remember these folks, they were next door to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to work on that. And I remember I approached them and they said, no, we don't know who you are. Or they didn't say that directly, but they had certain people in mind. So they kindly said no to me. Well, over a few months, I realized that either several people quit, either their background designers quit, or they weren't happy with the people that they got, or nobody was interested. And I think because it had the style was very specific. I don't want to say too specific, but it had a very kind of distinct look. And I think people either, for whatever reason, the people they were looking at, they couldn't get it, or just people didn't, I don't know. But I took the advantage of that. And I'm thinking like, okay, when I asked nicely, they were like, oh, no, it's okay. But now I realized they were desperate. So what I did was I took a few pages of my wannabe Emperor's New Groove sketches. I created like little layouts with characters in them. And I remember leaving them on the meeting room table late at night. And I just put my name on there. And what happened was, I think after a few weeks, I got a call back. I think they were so desperate. They're like, okay, you want to give it a shot? And I said, sure. And that was how I got in.
Oh my God, that is awesome.
So, I just I warmed down is what I did. So, yeah. But that was my first design job, and it was great. I was working next to Colin Stimpson, who was the production designer for the first Emperor's New Groove movie. And Colin's great. I learned so much from him. And I remember drawing fast and a lot for storyboards is one thing, but drawing fast and a lot for design, it was like going back to school again. And I remember I now had the library for all of the Emperor's New Groove because we had to look at it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was an education. I saw a lot of Paul Felix stuff, saw a lot of Kevin Nelson stuff. I saw a lot of Kevin Chen and all these other artists, Tom Cardone.
Oh, God.
All these artists I was exposed to, and it was like going back to school again, but for design, and I loved it.
Right.
And I had to draw fast, even faster, because I had to, we had to do things overnight, because Colin was still in England. So we had to turn in stuff at the end of the day, and then the next morning we got comments back because of the time difference.
Right.
So the show was actually a 24-hour show. Things were always happening. Mm-hmm. With that, I had to really keep things, flowing through the pipeline.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was awesome. So I went from there to Tinkerbell.
That's where you and I met.
Yeah.
Tink 1.
It was Tink 1. And it was great. I mean, and at the time, that was a learning experience too, because as you remember, we transitioned from a 2D to a 3D show.
Yeah. Oh,
and everybody was like, what? And it was a big learning curve, but it was great. I slowly learned stuff, and we were all wanting to be somewhere, and we were all trying to help each other. I think we were all just hungry for it,
Yeah.
And it was a great time. It's funny. It's like, a lot of the stuff we were doing at Disney Toons wasn't the best, but working at Disney Toons was awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned so much.
There was something I noticed when I discovered your work, which was on the production, on the Tinkerbell 1 production. And that is, and at least at the time, I'm not sure how much you were doing this intentionally before, mm-hmm. You were doing those fairy house concepts, all the concepts for the different places that all the fairies would live.
That was one of the first things I did, yeah.
And they were I remember one thing that I noticed about that was this idea that an environment design or a prop design is no different than a character design. Mm-hmm. It's just all the same, and they all have a gesture and an energy that you're trying to, discover and then preserve mm-hmm. throughout the design process. And so that was really it was your work that revealed that to me. And then something that was really interesting, just on a technique level, that it seemed like you were doing is you would do. I assume you would do that sort of ghosty underdrawing, but then you'd start to do what was the drawing we all kind of really saw in like kind of not a super tapered line, it wasn't like a calligraphic line or a wildly tapered line, but you would do this sort of but kind of a thinner line. And then you would go in with like a thicker line in almost like a graphic way. You would almost put like it'd be like you were working with like a broken pencil. So like with like the lead kind of broken for the first set of lines. And then you go in with like a chisel tip marker mm-hmm. with like other lines. So it'd be like this drastic thickness change within the same drawing. And I remember just being like, wow, it's so functional, but it's a design unto itself. Like the piece of concept art is a design unto itself. And I remember just being mesmerized by that. I just love that so much. So anyway, I guess I'm asking a question though. I'm not only gushing. I am proudly gushing, but I'm not only gushing. I'm getting at a question, which is, that's when I discovered your work. And, we talked a little bit about like how much were you doing those kinds of things in your storyboards. So, but I mean, how did that all work in your mind in terms of gesture and like doing less and less and less and, all that kind of stuff? How much of that was new to you? Because you'd only that was only your second film as a layout artist. So how much of that was kind of a new area of exploration, and how much of that in your mind was just kind of like, oh, well, this is just how I draw when I'm doing storyboards too?
I think it was definitely learning because, I was like, okay, design, but now it's like you have to, it's more information. Huh. I remember you can keep a gestural as an initial drawing, but then there's a point where you need to kind of clean up things or just take it to a new level of information. And what I mean by that is not necessarily clean up, but, just more information on the page. We can cheat a lot of things out in storyboards because then somebody else is going to do it anyway. We're just kind of like indicating. But now that was my job. So, yeah, it's kind of like the gesture kind of got me there. But, again, I was exposing myself to all these other great designers and seeing how they, how far they did it without overkilling or overdoing. Because at the same time, we're working under really crazy time constraints or schedules. Mm-hmm. So it had to be clear, but at the same time, it's like, still working in our comfort area where we got to get it out. Yeah. It was like, okay, we had no choice. I mean, a lot of times we're like, we get assigned and either the next day we had to turn it in or a few days later, something like that. I mean, that was just normal and crazy, but that was, whatever it took to get there.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me, though, that this idea of you trying to maintain that gestural kind of strength in your work and then having to have it function in the production. That's really, really fascinating. And it's interesting that you were figuring that out, and yet that's the thing that it was in my mind as being this thing that I really picked up from you, a mental framework for understanding how to do that. And yet you're saying that's what you were kind of like working out in your own mind at the time. So, okay. So you went to Gotcha Man next. Was that your next step?
Well, I went to Astro Boy.
Or Astro Boy,
well, actually, you know what? Let me back up. I went from DTS over to Stars Animation, which was in the same house or same building in Burbank, right across the street from Burbank Airport, where Stars Animation is at, where they have filmed, the Simpsons King of the Hill, or at the time King of the Hill. Stars Animation opened up, and Stars was originally IDT Entertainment, and it was basically they were trying to start up a feature unit where they wanted to do feature films. So it was IDT, and then it turned into Stars bought them over and became Stars Animation. And they had they had like 3 or 4 movies or projects that they were trying to make into movies. So we did a lot of visual development for. Long story short, the company folded. But what happened was a lot of the crew or people who were at Stars pretty much just moved over to Imagi Studios, which was now at where the Glendale Galleria was, right next door to Warner Brothers, or at the time where Warner Brothers was at in the mall.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Warner Brothers had a studio there at the mall.
Weird.
Yeah, we were right next to them, and it was cool. I mean, we were kind of in a really cool strip in a really cool mall. But yeah, Imagi Studios rented out this floor where on one end of the floor was Gotcha Man, and then the other end was Astro Boy.
Cool.
Yeah, and I learned at the time they wanted to do a 2D, 3D hybrid studio setup for design. And what that was they wanted all the designers to learn Maya. So that way we had more control of the design through the pipeline. Yeah. So basically we would sketch something out, a simple thumbnail or sketch. We got the idea. And then we ourselves built it in the most simplest terms, in the most basic building blocks. We did it in Maya. And we would make sure the scale was there or the composition. And then we would take a picture of it, a JPEG, and then we would draw right over it and finish the design. So that way, now we had our design, traditionally, we had our drawing or our painting, plus we had a dirty model, which would become a footprint that we could accompany this, and then the modelers would take it. Yeah. So that's what they started. At the time, I hated it because Maya was so hard for me to grasp. Right. And it took 3 months for me to kind of like, oh, I get it now. And then I loved it. And then I appreciated why they did that. And it was so helpful and beneficial. It gave me the tools of a camera now where I can actually move things around and I could see things dimensionally as you would see it in film. it really helped when I went to Pixar, because for the really short, quick schedules we had to do it on Cars, everything I learned on Astro Boy, as far as using it 2D, 3D, I applied there, and it helped.
Yeah, that's huge. I think it's interesting that you guys were like, man, new studio or new, kind of relatively new pipeline situation, anything it takes, whatever we can do to just get the picture made.
Yeah, put it in space as fast as you can.
Yeah.
It's like getting a dirty block. It's like this is all it is a dirty block. It's like we're not modelers. We're not going to go full on and model everything. I mean, some people could, but it's like, no, this is just a basic 3D Lego set that we're using for space, and it just answers questions right away. And it just, I mean, once you can throw it in space really quickly with the camera, for a drawing, you cheat a lot of things. And then if somebody else, a different person, tries to model it from the drawing, there's going to be a lot of compromise.
Yeah.
But when you put it in camera, then there's no compromise. The compromise, it drops where, the composition's there, the scale's there, how you draw it is pretty much close to how you built it, so there's an efficiency there too. But yeah, I remember way back when there was that thing like, oh, we don't want to step on people's toes, and it's like, but I think you just have to realize, okay, we're in this for the movie. We're not here to take your job. We're all in it we're in the same team. Yeah. If anything, I'm going to help you with this design. So it erases more questions.
Exactly. That's totally it, right? And solves problems faster, and it removes the abstraction that's caused by an error in perspective or whatever, an abbreviated line here or there. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and so Imaji was like, just make the movie.
Yeah, they didn't care because, I mean, they had time constraints, budget constraints. It's like, we just needed to get this done. Yeah. And that was good. I mean, you understand that. And it's like, well, the end goal is to produce the best thing you can under the conditions.
And so how long were you at Imaji? Actually, and I have to ask a geeky question. Was the TMNT movie done by the time you got there, or was it was done, I think, about a year or two before I got there. All right. I love the design in that movie. I love those turtle designs.
Yeah. So it was great. I mean, I was only on there for Astro Boy for about a year and a half. Okay. And then from there, I went to Pixar.
So you got out of Imaji before it
collapsed. Yeah. I left, and then I think it was like 2 weeks later or less than a month is when I heard what happened. So then to Pixar. Yeah. We're here. We're here now. And everybody's been wondering. They're like, oh, when are they going to get to Pixar? Okay, congratulations, everybody. We followed John to Pixar. How did that happen? So you left Imaji, or was there something between Imaji and Pixar? Well, what happened was, I'll backtrack just a few years earlier. It was around 2000, maybe 4, that I actually applied to Pixar as a story artist. And, I went so far as I got interviewed, and, I think about a year later, or shortly after that, the interview, I got in. And we were like, me and my wife were like, oh, we're in. And we got so excited. So we were making preparations to maybe sell the house or at least rent it out. And we were going to go up. And then during this time, I think it was like about a week after I got the notice that we were hired, we're making these major plans. And then we found out we got a call from Pixar saying like, oh, you know what? We can't bring you up. And I was like, what happened? She was explaining to me, and what happened was this was a time that Pixar and Disney were going through their kind of divorce. Yeah. And part of the casualty was they couldn't bring any new hires on. So big bubble burst. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so close, and yet I can't go. So it was a weird experience because I wanted that bad. You tasted it, and then all of a sudden it's not happening. Oh. But what the cool thing about that was I was still on Pixar's radar since then, that they always kind of, I was talking to the recruiter or some folks, and they always kind of had me kind of on the radar. They kind of knew, about me. They still wanted to, I guess, work with me, and that was cool. And so what happened was, after this whole time, this is 2004, this is when I made the switch from story to as a designer. And just kind of let you know, this is the time that my first gig was Crocs New Groove and then Tinkerbell and so forth. So I wasn't doing storyboards. I was doing more background design, layout design, and I was just a designer. Right. And so I kind of switched gears and went toward that. So anyway, you fast forward till 2009, and actually 2007. Let me backtrack. 2007 is when I applied to Pixar as a designer, and it took a little bit of time. It took about a year and a half. And during this time, I was with Disney Toons. I was with Stars Animation. Then I was then at Amaji on Astro Boy, and then Pixar said, "Oh, there's a slot open. We'd love to have you come over as a sketch artist, a designer." And I was like, "Great!" Did the interview, and that's when that was my opportunity. That was the slot that got me in. So right after Amaji, I told Amaji, "Got to go." I'm trying to remember exactly what I told them, but it was something to the effect like Pixar just called me, and this is, and I think my job was winding down, and I think they understood. But it's funny, I had a lot of friends who were on the crew, and they kind of understood. They're like, "Yeah, you gotta go."
Yeah,
so
you have to say yes, and that's the thing. When Pixar calls, it's like, yeah, you just go. Everyone knows what the answer is.
Yeah, and they were so cool. They were understanding, right. And I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta figure out what's behind that wall.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what happened. So in 2009, January, at the end of January 2009 is when I left to go to Pixar.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what was the transition like for you? I mean, the moving, the first day, the meetings, the getting to know who are you introduced to? Because there's so many awesome people there. I mean, how in the world, how does that whole kind of process work, or at least how did it work when you got your job there?
Yeah, well, let's see. I after they said come on up, we got a start date going, and prior to the start date, I think about 4 weeks, it was in January, is when Pixar arranged for them to get a realtor to actually help us look for a place, because it was really quick, because they wanted me to start I think in February. So I think is December, I want to say early December, late November is when they said, come on up. Mm-hmm. So we had to scramble. They arranged for a realtor. So I remember one weekend, me and my wife came up, and she had about 20 listings for us to see. And we had about 10 additional listings on top of that. So we just, out of the whole 35 we had together, or 30, we said, okay, let's try and look at these 15. And so we were like, we were everywhere. We had appointments. We looked at places. Anyway, we did find a place we liked. It was in Walnut Creek. So we finally got a place, and then we kind of okay, Pixar was really cool. They helped us get established, and that first weekend we went in, and then that Monday, I came in, and I basically spent most of the day in a room where they just had orientation. So I was on the studio a lot, but I was pretty much in a room the whole day, and they were giving me orientation with 7 or 8 other new hires, just like me.
Right.
And I was the only sketch artist. The other guys were modelers, riggers, or they worked. I think one was a librarian.
Oh wow!
They worked in different areas of the company. So I remember the orientation was awesome. And at the end of the day, it was about 5 o'clock, and it was exhausting. I mean, they gave us information and these binders and everything, and it was, it was mentally exhausting. I was like, wow. And I remember at the end of the day, they gave us our badges that would give us entry to anything. So they said, oh, you're free to go home. So everyone went home except me. I was like, okay, I finally got this badge. Yeah. I can open. I can go in now. So there's these glass doors. If you've been to Pixar, there is a public area where everybody can go in, or visit or stuff. It's in the atrium, and so it's in the middle of the building where you can actually have access. And then there's these glass doors that obviously you can't go through because you have to be an employee. So I finally got this badge, this card badge that I can swipe to go through. So I was like, I gotta go. So that's what I did. I swiped my card, the door opened, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I walk in, and I just walk everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just being Mr. Friendly guy, like, hi. And I'm looking at everything. I walk into the art review rooms. They have all the art up, and in the hallways where they're posting, work in progress stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And at the time, it was a lot of art, So, I was like so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I was just on cloud 9. So I go home, tell my wife, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. So yeah, that was my first day. And then, the next day I was introduced to my crew, which was Cars 2. I was working for Harley Jessup, who's awesome.
Oh yeah.
It's great.
Wow, that's awesome. And so then how did your first assignment take place? Like, whenever I get a new gig, there's always sort of this slow start, it seems. Like very rarely do I come onto a production where it's kind of like, okay, go. Here's your drawing, paint it. It's like there's usually some sort of. So I'm interested in that, about how you're, getting to know the crew and just sort of that transition to sitting down and drawing, right? I mean, I guess I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah. It was a really slow wrap up. What happened was, my first week was kind of slow. Harley was great. He introduced me, and he said, he kind of said, like, you're starting, so why don't you just kind of absorb everything and just kind of sit tight, and we'll slowly feed you stuff.
Right.
So, I got to know the team. I would sit in on some meetings, and I remember that first, every week is an art review toward the end of the week. So I sat in on the art review, and that was awesome. I was quiet. They introduced me, but I sat quietly as everybody was showing their stuff. And I was like, wow, I realized these guys are the superstars. I mean, it's like, you did this in a week kind of thing. Like, oh my God. And I was like, wow. And it's one of those things where, like, I was scared because I had one of those, like, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm here, but can I deliver what they want? And at the same time, I was excited. Like, I can't wait. So that was it. I had watched Cars 1, obviously. So I did a lot of that. And kind of got to know the style, especially for Cars 2. Yeah. It's based on an existing movie, and there's a certain style. Yeah. There's a carification where car parts kind of. Oh yeah. They kind of settle into the architecture in a certain way. You don't want to make it too much where it's a theme park. Right. It has to be a subtle blend, and it was great.
And so then you went on to. So you were on Cars 2 for how long?
I want to say a year and a half.
Yeah. So was that kind of the end of the production then, or did you move on to Monsters?
What happened was my position would wrap off. I was as soon as you got so many assets built in so many locations, then they would slowly ramp off artists. So that's what happened. I would be ramped off, and then I would be moved on to another project, another movie. Okay, so you were kind of late start on Cars 2, but then maybe an earlier start on Monsters, Inc. Is that what happened? I think what happened was Monsters 2 was starting, and it was a great crew, and I'm like, it was a fun project. And I'm like, it would look like a fun project. This is before I worked on it, and like I saw the work they were doing, like, I would love to work on that. So it's gorgeous. I was kind of like, I kind of knew a few folks, and I was kind of like, hey, I'm available. Hey, I would love to work. Then I got on, and
what did you learn because of Pixar? Like, what did you learn about it as an artist? How did you grow as an artist that you feel like you needed to go there in order to grow? Is there anything like that where you feel like, oh yeah, this was definitely triggered by, or definitely a result of my working at that studio?
Well, I think everybody, and I've said this, and I hear it from a lot of people, like, Pixar is considered like the high mark. That's right. The goal of any artist in the industry. It's like they're doing great things, and they hold their things to a high caliber. And it's like, if you go there, it's like you are expected to deliver high art, right, all the time, and that's kind of like the goal as an artist. Like, I get it, and plus, the movies they come out with, it's like, it's like you want to be part of that. Yeah. So that was my kind of goal to get to Pixar. At this time, I was still learning a lot, and I just like any other artist, it's like you want to be as best as you can be, and I wanted to get there. So when I got there, it was great. I was like, all of a sudden, I always make this analogy, like I was invited onto a court of NBA people that I've always wanted to. And here I am, I was high schooler, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get beat up, but I'm going to love it, So, and it was great. I worked with people who I always wanted to work with. And again, I learned to perform at a high level every day. Like, you had to deliver. So it was great. I mean, you worked your butt off. I remember the first week especially, but the first month, I remember, like, I worked at such a high level, and it was awesome. Yeah. It was exhausting at the end, but it was a good exhaustion because I felt like I had a good workout. Yeah. And I felt creatively like, my muscles got challenged, and I love it. I'm sore, and I love it, kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, so it was great, just working with all these great people. And everybody there was so generous. So I was like asking questions on how they worked and just how they approached stuff. And it was awesome. And then I was fortunate to work with some great production designers. Harley Jessup's awesome. Yeah. Goodness. Yeah, he's a great designer. But I think another thing I learned from him is just organization and how important presentation is. And always took for granted, but Harley's really, he's very specific, and he's very elaborate on presentation, and you don't see it, and then you realize, yes, because you realize, as production goes, you only have, maybe early on you have so much time with the director, but when production kind of gets busier and busier and there's more people on the crew, this director gets divided with time. So in art review, you only have so much time with that director. So sometimes you only have 5 minutes. And the way you present your board and how, it's not so much verbally how you present it, but it's actually how you pin it up on the wall. There's a key to it. And Harley kind of showed that, where on this side of the wall, you want to have some storyboards so you can remind the director where in context what you're designing from. You want to show your research, you want to show your early sketches or your thinking, your process, and then you want to show your final pieces, and anything else beyond that. I mean, which is kind of, we all know that, but he does it in such a way that he does it in an economic way, and then he does it in such a way where he's very specific as to how you pin things up. It's almost like there's a template where it has to be so many inches from the top, and you think about this and like that's pretty specific and anal, but there's a reason, and it works, and I learned so much, and he's just a great guy.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to work with him on 2 movies there, so it was great.
What was the second film you worked with Harley on?
It was Cars 2 and Monsters. I'm sorry, not Monsters. Day of the Dead.
Oh, I forgot that you were working on the Day of the Dead movie.
Yeah, it's not called Coco, but yeah, he was on that, and worked with him on that, and it was awesome too.
So you basically worked on 3 movies while you were at Pixar.
See, did I? I want to say 4.
Oh,
I did a little bit of stuff on Inside Out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh,
It wasn't a lot.
That.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. I just did a few paintings, and I worked a little bit on in the production side for the Dream production set.
Okay. And at what point did you do that? Was that the last thing you worked on?
One of the last things.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, I gotcha.
Yeah, it was. I worked on that, and then the last thing I did was I worked a little bit for the theme parks unit. They have a theme parks unit where they help out with Imagineering on certain things that have a Pixar, like a Pixar character. So Pixar has a hand on it. So I worked with that.
Of course.
And that was great. I mean,
wow, that's cool. Did you find yourself working tighter in general at Pixar? I know there's a lot of development art that you've shared on your Facebook page or whatever, where there's just a very high level of finish. Not only is it beautifully designed, but and what I don't want to accidentally communicate to the listeners here is that extremely polished or very detailed equals finished. Sometimes it does, and other times it doesn't. But just in this case, I've noticed like a lot of the stuff you did for Monsters, for example, it's really tight. And I was just interested in how that happened, or I assume there's a functional reason for that.
it is. It's funny. A lot of people have said that about my work. Like, they see my work before Pixar and it's a lot looser, and then a lot of stuff I worked at Pixar, it's a lot tighter. And yeah, I think it's because of what we were doing. It was a quick concept, and we had to really quickly do a lot of these production, assets. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it was finished, almost blueprint stuff, which is great. That's something that's a skill that I think every designer should do. It's like you have the concept, which is great. It could be loose, but the idea is strong. But then it's like, okay, you want to make sure if it's going to be built, it's going to be built to how you translate that concept. So. We did a lot of that, or I did a lot more of that there than I did before.
Do they have a layout designation at Pixar, or is it just all visual development and they just give you layout stuff? How does that work?
Well, let's see. Some people would just kind of their specialty or their forte was characters. So they would do characters. Some were sets, and some did both. And it's not like you were kind of, you would only do that. I mean, if you wanted to, you could ask or showcase like, oh, you could do both. It wasn't so much like you were kind of like, that's it. I think in some aspects, it's like, everybody's like, okay, we all got to pitch in and do this. So,
yeah, exactly.
But I know, some people, their strong point was just certain, like their characters, and that was okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And two, there's room for growth, I think. You'll have people come in, and just like you were saying, it's like you would your art evolved while you were there, and I think that also happens. You discover things that you didn't know you would even be interested in.
Yeah.
That's one of the big advantages of being in a place where you are literally bumping into people who are just as passionate as you and know more than you. Like working in a place where people know more than you, that's amazing. Just that's what's so great about a good studio.
It is. It's like it's a tap of just this great talent and energy and inspiration. You're like, I want part of that. I want to absorb it and drink it all, and because you want to be that much better.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
Yeah.
We had a conversation last week about "it's all good."
One
of your catchphrases, and can you, for the listeners, unpack that just a little bit? And like we were talking about, it's one of those sort of very simple but very powerful mantras.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what I told you.
Well, you were talking about how you'd say it's all good in the neighborhood, and you would say it in this way that was like very relaxed and yet it was like self-affirming, and then that was tested, and it was when it was tested that you were really gained a new appreciation of it.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember the origin, but I just remember it goes back to anything. It's like you got a lot of stuff on your plate. And sometimes you can't really absorb all those problems because it overwhelms you and you can't do anything about it. And you just have to just realize you can only do your best and you can only do what you can. You just have to prioritize what's important. And, and sometimes you just have to let it go and you realize it's not so bad. I think sometimes we make things bigger than they are, or we kind of like, but you just have to and I just kept saying that because it's like, what? I always tell myself, I always tell my wife, it's like, I got better things to worry about. We all have a worry plate. I don't want more food on my worry plate because I'm not going to finish it. It's like, I'm not going to worry about something I don't know about. When I was a father, I was Mr. Worrywart because I was like, I wanted everything had to be, I was worried about my child and like hurting herself and the world and everything. And then I had my anxiety attack. And then I'm like, you know what? The world happens. But, you just have to trust that it's going to be okay. And you just can't take the world's problems and even your own problems. It's like, it's going to be okay. So you're going to work with people that you may or may not agree with. And you're going to be like, it has to be a certain way. No, just realize, like, you know what? It's beyond you. You can only do so much. It's not your movie. You're there as a contributor. But just do your best. Keep it keep it professional. And just say, okay. It's going to be okay. It's all good. And, any problems that you have, they'll come and they'll go. And you just have to just, take it, and just make the best of it and just move on. Don't dwell on it. You can't do anything in the past. I mean, we're not, we don't have time machines. It's like, okay, whatever in the past happened in the past. Move forward. You got to just kind of keep looking forward. You got to just keep moving ahead.
Yeah, I think that's something that was interesting about talking about that with you. You were talking about how you would repeat this to yourself. It's all good in the neighborhood. And because I was trying to convince myself. And I just kept believing. I'm like, oh yeah, it is all good. That's what I loved about that. That was the specific nuance of that conversation about that kind of revelation that you shared with me. That's the part that really spoke to me. That you were being decisive, not dismissive.
Yeah. It's almost like, I could complain about stuff and I could gripe about things, but I'm still in the same place. I didn't move forward. I'm just bitter. There's a scene in Apollo 13. It's like 3/4 of the movie where, these guys, you see, Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon and I forgot the astronaut's name. Bill Paxton, yeah. And they're up there and they're all tired. And Bill Paxton had kind of blamed Kevin Bacon for kind of skewing with some of the tools that they thought caused the accident, their dilemma, and they're kind of floating in space and trying to get back home. And I remember, they're arguing. Those guys are arguing. Tom Hanks, and they're all tired. They've been up there and they're trying to figure a way back home. And Tom Hanks said something to the effect like, "We're not going to go around and just complaining and bumping on walls because we're going to be in the same place." So I forgot the wording. Basically, what I got out of that was, what? If you're in a problem, you're in a dilemma, you can complain and angry and just say like, why? But you'll still be in the same place. So it's kind of like, well, rather than spend all that energy trying to say why don't you try and figure out and do the energy and try and move forward and try and figure out how to get out of there. And I was kind of like, okay, that's kind of what it's all about. You just got to move forward. You got to think positive. And it's like, if you don't move forward, you're going to be in the same spot.
Yeah.
And you just got to like stay hopeful, stay positive, do what you got to do to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And I don't know, either that, that could mean learning another skill. That could be like, trying to figure out what's going to create opportunities for you.
Yeah.
Don't say like, why am I getting it? Just be as best as you can be and just try and figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to be as best I can. I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that just for me, I feel like the decision to pursue the next dream or pursue that sort of positive outcome, whatever that, we're being vague because we're trying not to be prescriptive, right? I mean, that means different things to different people. Yeah. But the decision to pursue that positive outcome is, for me, emotionally and kind of internally, just as rewarding as experiencing that positive outcome.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's at that point that I decide that I'm reminded that I'm in control, and I'm not in control of everything, just like you're saying.
Yeah.
But there are things in my own life that I am in control of, and I've taken responsibility for that. And that really is it's a good feeling, even amidst the struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just, you can't control the world, but you can control, at least guide a little part of your world. Yeah. And you just, just hold on to that and just guide that as best you can to wherever destination you want to be at. And just do the best you can hitting that destination. You may not hit the bullseye, but you'll get pretty darn close if you keep your mark.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and we were talking about the differences of being in a studio versus being out on your own. And I was, of course, people ask me all the time. They're like, "So when are you going to go back to the studios?" And I'm like, "Well, no plans to do that anytime soon. But I would like to work on some studio projects at some point in the future in some capacity that kind of worked with my life. But I like being out on my own." And someone was asking me, they're like, "Man, isn't it hard though? Isn't it a struggle? Like knowing that." Just the ups and downs of business and that kind of thing. And I'm like, well, the ups and downs in the animation industry are just as unpredictable. But at least most of the time, if something goes wrong in my business, it's my fault. At least, you know what I mean? It's like, at least it was like, well, I screwed up. I'm going to try and learn from it and move forward. It's not just... there are less things that that are just like could just happen. I just get surprised by suddenly. And I said, I personally prefer the struggle and the uncertainty in exchange for being more in control of my own life, my own destiny. And then I enjoy the ambiguity of kind of surrendering to, a corporation or something like that, and I'd rather have the struggle and all of the fulfillment that comes from doing the Oatly Academy, from running the Oatly Academy and working with my team, and my teachers, then kind of going into my gray cube every day.
It's funny, animation is a hustle. Nothing lasts forever, so you have to like hustle and get the next gig and so forth. So there's some stress involved in it, and you're constantly hungry. It's almost like you're lying in the safari, and you're always looking for your next food. It's like you're on the prey, right? So you're constantly hungry, trying to do your best, trying to you're trying to be lean, and just you're on edge pretty much, just trying to get it, and you improve your skills. And when I got to Pixar is great, but you're an employee for life. So, you always have a gig. And I think what I did was I got comfortable. And after, this is in hindsight, I kind of lost that hunger for the hunt.
Right.
And what happened was, it was after I left Pixar, and I was trying to scramble. I was trying to feel all this. And it was only going back to the gigs and stuff like that I realized, wait, I think it's the hunger thing that keeps you. And it's the same analogy, like it's not the destination, it's the journey. Yeah. And it's like you're more hungry trying to find your spot than when you're actually getting to your spot. And that's what makes you stronger, hungry, and you take more risks. You become more alive. And there's kind of a thing to it. Here I am now, and nothing's for sure. I still have to hustle and stuff like that, but it keeps you on edge. And it's kind of it's a little scary, but you realize how alive you are. You're kind of like, this is life. This is, I have to do this on my own, and you have to, it's it. You're on there. You got to just do it now.
So good. Yeah. Oh man. All right, friends. Well, thank you all for listening, and John, thank you for your support and your encouragement, and just always being such a source of positive energy constantly. Never ends. I really appreciate that about you and your encouragement of me as a person in my career. I just can't thank you enough, man.
Oh no, Chris, thank you. I mean, I'm just lucky enough to know you, and I'm, we started kind of early on at the same time. So it's funny. We look back now where we're at, and like, it's been an awesome ride, and it ain't over. So it's like, so it's great.
Please join the conversation in the comments at oatleyacademy.com/go/JN2. That's J as in John, N as in Nevarez, and the number 2. oatleyacademy.com/go/JN2. Here's the discussion topic. Inside the craziness of the animation industry, attitude is everything. John was able to sidestep getting stuck and keep moving forward with the help of his mantra, "It's all good in the neighborhood." How big of a role does attitude play in your work? Do you have a mantra that helps to keep you positive and focused? Please share your thoughts in the comments at, here's the link again, oatleyacademy.com/go/JN2. That's the number 2. As an Oatley Academy student, you get access to extended producer's cut versions of our podcast interviews. You can hear almost an hour of extra audio in the extended version of my interview with John Nevarez. Plus, you'll get access to extended interviews with ArtCast favorites like Claire Keane, Armand Serrano, Jason Brubaker, and Jen Ely. At the time of this recording, we have 2 courses available. The Magic Box, where you'll learn how to become a digital painting wizard with hundreds of pro workflows, techniques, and time savers demonstrated step by step. And we also have the Storyteller Summit, where you'll learn to craft transcendent stories from some of the entertainment industry's best teachers. Join today at oatleyacademy.com/courses. And don't forget to join the Brush Club. You'll get free Photoshop brushes that I made, every single month for a year, and a how-to video to go with each new brush set. Join the Brush Club today at oatleyacademy.com/go/Oatley-brushes. Thank you again, my friends, for listening. Until next time, stay strong and stay close. The ArtCast is a production of the Oatley Academy of Visual Storytelling. I'm Chris Oatley, your host and producer. My assistant producers are Anya Marcos and Ejua Ebenepa. Kevin Chandler edited this episode. Mara Roberts and I wrote the copy. The music is by Storybook Steve and Kangaralian. Find more art and story podcasts designed to help you make a living from your own imagination at oatleyacademy.com/shows.